Bandra Sadwa Samaya Manu Balaya Bandra Sadwa Deno Bai Dildra Dejo Memba Soto Kaya Memba Wai Zubu Kaya Memba Anurado Memba Wai Sarwa Sede Mebraya Sarwa Krama Suza Me Zedan Shreya Kuru Ha 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 Bhagavan Saravata Tangata Bandrama Mimunza Baranzimba Mahasamaya Satwa Om Mandra Sadwa Samaya Manu Balaya Bandra Sadwa Deno Bai Dildra Dedo Meba Soto Kaya Meba Vai Zubu Kaya Meba Anorado Meba Vai Zarwa Sede Me Praya Sarva Krama Suza Me Zedan Shreya Guru Ha 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 Bhagavan Sarva Dada Gata Bandrama Me Munza Baranze Bhava Mahasamaya Satwa Dala Thongva Jebe Dra Lobar Jebe Geng Tarba Dan Tam Je Gembe Bardu Chobra Jeba Tam Jege Se Jebe Ma Nangka Dang Nampe Senjen Tam Je Dewa Tang Ten Tunga Dang De Nidu Lana Me Paya Dabra Zobe Janju Rimpo Je Dobra Jan. So this is the aspiration bodhicitta recitation in the opening recitation text on page 1. These are words of Kyopa Rinpoche. And this and then the next recitation, they are both the actual literal words of Kyopa Rinpoche. Kyopa Rinpoche especially would give these two ways, these two sets of recitations for generating aspiration and action bodhicitta. Dhala dhangwa jebe dra nobar jebe ge tarba dham tam je gembe bardu jobra jeba tham je ge se jebe ma nangka dang nyampe senjen tam je dewa dhan den tunga dan de nerdu lana me ba yang Dabara zobe janju rimpo je topra ja dhala dhamma jebe da nobara jebe ge taraba dhan tam je gembe bardu jobra jeba tam je ge ze jebe ma nanga dang nyampe senjen tam je dewa dhan den dunga dan de nudu lana me pa yang Dabra zobe janju rimpo je dobra ja de je du sang ma ge gi bardu lunga yisum ge wala go ma shi bardu lunga yisum ge wala go du dereng ne sunde ne ma san ta sam ge bardu lunga yisum ge wala go. Then to page 5. Sanje chodan soge chonam la chanchu bardu dani kyabsu che dhage jinsu gibe sonange chola penche sanje dhubra sho sange chodan soge chonam la chanchu bardu dani kyabsu che dhage jinsu gibe sonange chola penche sanje dhubra sho sange chodan soge chonam la chanchu bardu dani kyabsu che Dāgye jinsu kibe sonāngi Dhala penche sanje drupra shu manang kada nyampe senchen tamche dewa dang dewe gyundan dambara girji dungao dang dungao gi gyudan dewa girji dungao mepe dewa dame dewa girji neden chadan nidang dewe dang nyong la nabra girji manang kada nyampe senchen tamche dewa dang dewe gyundan dambara girji dungao dan dungao gi gyudan dewa girji dungao mepe dewa dame dewa girji nering chada nidang dewe dang nyong la nabara girji manang kada nyampe senchen tamche dewa dang dewe gyundan dambara girji dungao dan dungao gi gyudan dewa girji Dungao me pe dewa dhamme dewa gyurje nering chadan nidan dewe danyong la nebra gyurje. Bhajra samaja, bhajra samaja, bhajra samaja. Malu semchen kungi kungyurjin, tude pungche midze jomze la. Ngunam malu jishin kengyurpe, chumden koche nedu. She su so argim padyang pushpe tupe. Aloke gende nebe de shabda. Prate jaso sashi buju juji meto dram rera lenshi nide kimpadi sanje shinla mingte bulwa ye drugu namda shindu chobara shu jase wadang chujin shabadang jesu yirang kusing sowa ye kewa chungse dagi jisaba 탐체 소배 장주 지르고 Now just let body and mind settle into ease. Settle naturally. Do this with the attitude of you getting out of the way rather than you trying to achieve something. Just relax and settle both body and mind. Feel the presence of the field of accumulations, the objects of refuge, Guru Vajradhara in the space in front. In front of Guru Vajradhara are all the idams. To the right of Guru Vajradhara are all Buddhas of past, present, and future. Behind Guru Vajradhara are volumes and volumes of Dharma. Dharma manifesting in the form of texts. To the left of Guru Vajradhara is the noble Sanghas led by the great Bodhisattvas. The children, the heirs, the successors to Buddha Shakyamuni. In their presence, we let body and mind settle, be at ease. Recalling whatever teachings you have heard about the natural state of the body, the natural state of the mind, and trusting those teachings about the natural state of the body and the mind, and therefore just release, be at ease. Page 1 of the general laying aside text. Last great Guru Vajra holder and all you Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who reside in the 10 directions and 3 times. I, who am called Gunju Yishi Dorje, supplicate you turn your awakened attention to me. From beginningless samsaric time until this very moment, under the power of the afflictive emotions, attachment, aggression, confusion, pride, and jealousy, I have committed the 10 virtuous actions through the gates of my body, speech, and mind. I have committed the 5 heinous crimes and the 5 secondary heinous crimes. I have transgressed the individual liberation vows, transgressed the precepts of bodhisattvas, and transgressed the samayas of the great vehicle secret mantra. I have been faithless and disrespectful towards the 3 jewels. I have been faithless and disrespectful towards my gurus and teachers. I have been faithless and disrespectful towards my father and mother. I have been faithless and disrespectful towards my companions in the pure spiritual life. I have abandoned the sublime Dharma and disparaged the noble Sangha. In short, I now lay aside all faults and transgressions whatsoever that have become obstacles to the higher realms and to liberation, and that have become the cause of samsara and the lower realms. Before you, the great Guru Vajra holder, and all you Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions and 3 times, I expose the faults, I confess them, I am contrite, I regret them, I will not conceal them. I will not hide them, henceforth I will restrain myself and abstain from them. If I do not expose and lay them aside, they will not be transformed. Therefore, by revealing and laying them aside, may they be cleared, may I be purified. Namo to the mandala of you, victorious Idam deities. I expose and confess the broken samayas of the Vajra exalted body. I expose and confess the broken samayas of the Padma exalted speech. I expose and confess the broken samayas of the perfect exalted mind. I expose and lay aside the broken root and branch samayas. I expose and lay aside transgressions committed knowingly. I expose and lay aside transgressions committed unknowingly. The three non-virtues of the body, the four non-virtues of speech, the three non-virtues of mind. I confess each of the 10 non-virtues individually. With faultless disciplined conduct, possessing completely pure disciplined conduct, and through the disciplined conduct that is free of arrogance, may the paramita of disciplined conduct be perfected. To glorious Vajrasattva I pay homage. Bhadra Sattva Samaya Manobalaya Bhadra Dinobadita Dita Memo Sudokaya Memo Subokaya Memo Anurata Memo Samasita Memo Samakama Sujamin Jam Guru Hao Bhagavan Samadagada Bajrama Memo Jabajra Bhavama Samaya Sato Bhadra Samaya Manobalaya Bhadra Dinobadita Sudokaya Memo Subokaya Memo Anurata Memo Samasita Memo Samakama Sujamin Jam Guru Bajra Sattva Samaya Manobalaya Bhadra Dinobadita Dita Memo Sudokaya Memo Subokaya Memo Anurata Memo Samasita Memo Dedo memo was the dogma was the Bogama one, the other memo was over the Noja Samaka was in the Benjamin Magazine of the Umbasarasa does a man of the Bula, the nobody the number was the Nomas of Bogama, one of the memos of the Cinema Bejas of Wakamas in Jamaica. Chidam Trian Guru Hong Ha Ha Ha, Mangamas of the Nagada Besama, Benjamin of Mahasamaya Sand or Umbantarasa does a Bajrazada de nobody that they don't remember was the members of Bogama and the members of the Bajrazada Samayama Nobalaya Bajada de nobody that they don't remember was the members of Bogama and the members of the members of Kamasuja. Bajrazada Samayama Nobalaya Bajazada de nobody that they don't remember was the members of Bogama and the members of the Bajra Sata Samaya Manobala Yamazan, the Nobody that the Roman was the Romans of Bogam and the Romans of Chidam Trianguro Hong Ha 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 Ho Bagavan Sarava Tatagata Besam Jabesapo Mahasamaya Sato Bajra Sata Samaya Manobala Yabaza, the Nobody that the Roman was the Romans of Bogam and the Romans of Chidam Trianguro Hong Ha 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 Ho Mangavan Samatana Besam Jabesapo Mahasamaya Sato and the Samaya Manobala. Bazada de nobody that the was a members of Bogam and the members of the Sudoka was a Bogam and the members of the The Dome was a Dogam was a Bogam and the members of the Bajrasa Samaya Manu Palaya Bazada de nobody that the number was a members of Bogam and the members of the Dome was a members of Bogam and the members of Bajra Sada Samaya Mandobala Yamazan, the Romadera, and the name was the words of Bajra Sada Samaya Mandobala Yabaza, the nobody that they don't remember was Sudoka Yamemos, the Bogan Memo, and the members of the Chidam Trianguro Hong Ha 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 Magavan Zavada Dagada Bezama, Jabezeba Mahasamaya Sado. So next week, aside from continuing on with the main manual, we will also focus on mandala offerings. So if you want, prepare your mandala offerings things, then we will focus more on mandala offering. So in this manual, as you now know, the two specific preliminaries emphasized is the preliminary of clearing all the obscurations, and especially clearing, breaking of any compromising of the three sets of vows: individual liberation, bodhisattva, and secret mantra. These three levels of vows, any kind of breakages, any kind of damage, we clear the problems, we clear the damage through the practice of vajrasattva specifically, and more generally through the practice of laying aside through the four powers. Then to awaken, to give rise to the Buddha qualities through the practice of mandala offering. So these are the two preliminaries emphasized in this manual from the 14th century. Also, there is enough evidence for us to understand that in Kyoba Rinpoche's own time in the 12th, 13th century, he also emphasized these two as the main two preliminaries that one should have, that one should work on in order to support the more detailed, more advanced practices that these two preliminaries are highlighted. So when you look at the collection of teachings of Kyoba Rinpoche called the Kyoba Gambum, when Kyoba Rinpoche talks about the preliminaries as specific practices, so there is a more general sense of the preliminaries, the ngondro, which is the principles and the basic understandings, the basic orientation that we should have, and that is the more important ngondro, really. And then ngondro as specific types of practices. As for that, Kyoba Rinpoche emphasized as well the Vajrasattva practice and mandala. In the places where he talked about these two practices, he kept it very simple, actually, as reflected in our text. It's not a lot of long, endless recitations. So emphasizing really kind of the heartfelt qualities of cultivating these two important preliminary practices. And the cultivating of these two preliminary practices is to give rise to the preliminaries that we should ground ourselves in. The more important meaning of ngondro, the relatively more superficial meaning of ngondro are these two specific practices. But when Kyoba Rinpoche says, the ngondro is more important than the main practice, he's not talking about the specific practices of ngondro. He's talking about our fundamental understanding and orientation and our fundamental commitment. And therefore, the first of the fivefold, Mahamudra, the bodhicitta fold, the bodhicitta aspect is sometimes also called the special preliminary. So it's changing our attitude, changing our orientation, changing our understanding. So this is really something that we should pay attention to, because everything that we are going to realize completely, thoroughly, are things that are that we are taught under the category of the preliminaries. As I've said before, in some ways, after the Buddha taught for the first time to the 5 monks, taught the turning of the wheel of Dharma, whereby the 4 noble truths were taught, were given, we can understand that, that is basically the gist of the answers to all the questions of where the suffering come from. You don't like suffering, and then, you need to recognize suffering as it's happening. Then you need to understand suffering has causes. These causes can be removed. You can put an end, and there is a method, there is a process to put an end to them. And because, this first teaching wasn't enough for most of us, so then Buddha spent the rest of his life, another 45 years, helping us to slowly, this way, that way, this way, that way, this way, that way, to finally fully awaken to what he taught in this very first teaching, teaching on the 4 noble truths. So 4 noble truths then, is part of this ngondro. It provides the basic orientation, the basic understanding. If we don't have this ngondro, then you could say, oh, I'm now practicing bodhicitta, but actually probably it's not bodhicitta, probably some kind of emotionalism, and then thinking, oh, that must be bodhicitta. Then, of course, without understanding bodhicitta and cultivating bodhicitta, also not enough ngondro. Not enough ngondro. Then, in order to practice bodhicitta, without working on clearing obscurations, especially clearing, breaking of these vows, compromising the vows, staining the vows that we have taken, without doing that, also hard to authentically give rise to bodhicitta. Without building up our resources, without building up the merit that we need to progress on this path, and chiefly through mandala offering, also very difficult, also not possible. So all these are matters of the foundation level matters, the ngondro that we need to have. So near Nipa's Jewel Garland, the Fivefold Jewel Garland manual, we are at around page 27. Yesterday, as I was doing some work on translation and looking at different things, I came across in one of the dictionaries of Tibetan Buddhist terms there is one very, I think, helpful, precious point, citing an explanation given by one of the great early Kagyu masters, Goram, let's see, Lorepa's Sungung. Lorepa is part of the Dupa Kagyu tradition, one of the early Dupa Kagyu masters. Dupa Kagyu being another branch of the Dakpo Kagyu family. Lorepa said, he said, when we talk about the manifest awakenings, the Abhisambodhi, remember the 5, what we call the 5 awakenings, more literally, so the Sanskrit is Abhisambodhi, Tibetan is Ngong To. So Lorepa says, when we are speaking of the 5 Abhisambodhis, in the context of creation stage practice. So he says this, he says, it is not referring to the purposeful step-by-step visualization of the form. And so it says it's not really talking about the form itself of the specific deity. And he says it's also not talking about the recollection of the purity of the deity. And there, what is this referring to? Knowing the purity of the deity and the clarity of the visualization. These are sometimes said to be two of the three important kind of points that you need to work on when it comes to creation stage. And so to give a little bit of background to really appreciate what Lorepa is saying, first, what are these three? And so these three are called stable divine pride. Stable pride of the deity is one. Lai Ngagya, stabilizing the pride of the deity. Second, remembering the purity of the deity. And third, strengthening clarity of the image. So clarity of the image is probably the most kind of known, or also what most people struggle with. All the intricate details of the deity. It says that we should try to make that clearer and clearer in our creation stage practice. So here Lorepa says, to cultivate the 5 awakenings in the context of creation stage isn't really talking about the intricate details of like what the deity looks like, what the idam looks like. Although that's something you should work on, but the abhisambodhi, the ngongto, isn't really about that. Then he says it's also not about remembering, bringing to mind the purity aspect. And what is this referring to? So the second one, bringing to mind the purity of the deity, is talking about what we would call the symbolism behind each of the characteristics of the deity. One face means this, 4 arms mean that, this arm holding this means this holding that means that. He says, again, generally speaking, you should know the symbolism. And you should try to recall the symbolism, because when you recall the symbolism and actually, this means this means this, the 13 Sambhogakaya ornaments means this, the garland of freshly severed heads, this garland of human heads that Chakasamvara wears, it actually means this, Those are a way for Buddha qualities manifesting. But Lorepa says, this is also not what the abhisambodhis are about. And the third point of divine pride, he doesn't say here, but he says, but rather What this Abhisambodhi, these five awakenings are, is realizing what the practice is all about, which is realizing what's already there all along. So this is actually related to the third part, the third element normally explained, which is strengthening, stabilizing trust and conviction in the fact of you being Buddha. In other words, right? Holding what's known as divine pride, confidence in your innate Buddha nature. And so the five awakenings is to show how even as we experience and go through this from the perspective of a confused being, and therefore we die from our last life, then we enter the bardo, and then after a period in the bardo, our karmic winds push us to the next life, then we see our future parents, then the future parents, the sperm from the father, ovum from the mother, come together, and then we latch on to that. Then conception happens, then the embryonic gestation period, and then birth. That even as we are playing out this samsaric process, what actually is going on are the five awakenings. What's been there all along. So in other words, like all the samsara, all the confusion, all the dukkha, all the suffering that we are experiencing now, in one way, when Buddhas, when Buddhas kind of view this world from that perspective, they don't see any sentient being. They don't see any of us as sentient beings. Now, all they see is, Buddhas, and Buddhas in Buddha lands. From that perspective, from the perspective of ultimate bodhicitta, Buddhas cannot find even one dust mote size of sentient being existing that they have to pull out of samsara. So the idea or the concept of the awakenings is to make this point in a more detailed way. The very process of birth and death as samsaric confused beings in reality is the play of awakened mind, awakened heart, that just endlessly, now endless, from an awakened perspective, is not a terrible thing. But right now, in our confused state, endless is just endless dukkha, endless confusion, endless stress, endless everything. Buddhas are also endless, but is endless Buddha, endless Buddha qualities. Yeah? So Lorepa says, this awakenings, the five awakenings that we need to kind of understand when we are practicing the beginning of how to give rise to idam, how to create the idam in the creation stage. Know that this is pointing us to what's been there all along. What's actually there all along, this whole time. So this is something I thought very nice yesterday when I was looking for something in a dictionary, and then I saw this by Lorepa. In another teaching, Gyoba Rinpoche gives the example of the 5 awakenings applied to a simpler, you could say, a simpler deity, which is the Lord of Great Compassion, Avalokiteshvara. So I'll share this with you so that you can apply this to whatever deity practices that you are doing. These 5 awakenings, these 5 sambodhi, you need to recognize those stages. So he says, for example, to illustrate with a practice like that of the Lord of Great Compassion, first, through the Swabhava mantra, one cultivates the understanding of all phenomena, of appearance and existence, of samsara and nirvana as emptiness. And this is awakening into the emptiness of dharmata. So the first of the awakenings. Then one cultivates a lotus and a moon disk. So in the case of Avalokiteshvara, usually sun disk is not part of the seat. So here, lotus and moon disk. So then, Gyoba Rinpoche said, then this is the awakening into the sun and moon seats, the sun and moon cushions. Second of the 5 awakenings. Upon that, you cultivate the seed syllable Hri, and this is awakening into the letter of speech, the 3rd awakening. From Hri, light rays emanate, striking all sentient beings and clearing all their misdeeds and obscurations. The light rays gather back and transform into a white lotus marked by the syllable Hri. This is the awakening into the mudra. Mudra here means symbol. Symbol is referring to the lotus with a Hri syllable. That's quite common in Avalokiteshvara sadhanas. That's the 4th awakening. Then one cultivates the complete form of the deity with all ornaments and attire perfectly arrayed. This is the awakening into the completely perfected, exalted body. The 5 awakenings. He says, furthermore, in the creation stage, one practices in accordance with the basis of purification. And the basis of purification, so how are we doing this purification? How are we doing this refining and clearing and cleansing? With a basis to work with. What is the basis we're working with? The stages of birth in conditioned existence. The stages of dying and rebirthing in conditioned existence is the basis we're working with. And so one practices in the manner of the teacher's own manifest awakening. So these 5 manifest awakenings are the Mahayana explanation of how Buddha Shakyamuni achieved Buddhahood through the 5 awakenings. So in the sutras, there is a way to talk about the 5 awakenings. That doesn't involve, seed syllable, mudra, symbol, because that's the secret mantra explanation. So in the Sutrayana, Mahayana, in the Sutrayana sources of the Great Vehicle System, there's also talking about the 5 awakenings, and specifically with regards to Buddha Shakyamuni's process as he sat under the tree, the Bodhi tree. Elsewhere, I have emphasized the 3 parts of the night, right? The 3 awakenings. First, he remembered all his past lives. Then he could see all the past and future lives of all beings. And then the third knowledge, the 3 knowledges that he gained through the 3 periods of the night. And then the third knowledge is the knowledge of all phenomena. In other words, all knowingness was achieved in the third. And so that's the general explanation that all levels of Buddhist practice, all traditions of Buddhism can accept that. Then in the Mahayana sources, it says, in a more detailed way, if you want to understand that process, there are the 5 awakenings. Then in secret mantra, those 5 awakenings are applied to creation stage. And so it says here, and so one practices in the manner of the teacher. When it says the teacher, it's talking about Buddha Shakyamuni, our common reference point, the teacher's own manifest awakening. Here, making manifest or cultivating the fact that you are yourself an actual Buddha, innately awakened in the manner of the 5 awakenings. This is what we call creation stage. This is what we call creation stage. The 5 awakenings. Questions? Clarifications?
I missed the first one. I was related to emptiness, but what did you say before that?
What did I say before that?
Well, you were just listing the 5 awakenings, right? The second was the lotus and moon disk, awakening into the sun and moon cushions. Then third was cultivate the swillable tree. First one has something to do with
emptiness.
Yeah, that's just it. Cultivate emptiness.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's related, then specifically related to the process of death and bardo and rebirth, the process of conditioned existence. Then it's related to, if you want to, each of these awakenings can be further kind of detailed, the more detailed unfolding of them. Then to get to the emptiness point, there are steps prior to that, which is the dissolution of this body as we die. So in more detailed creation stage practice, you actually begin by, you could say in a way, on the level of cultivating, it is about kind of rehearsing this process in your mind. At first in your mind, then you do it more and more, then your whole being can feel this kind of dissolution. And so you recognize all the stages of dissolution. So that when death happens, you can also go recognize all the signs that are manifesting, and instead of panicking and fearing and not want to let go, you understand, this is my chance now to reverse this, so that it's not conditioned existence that comes next, but you awaken into Buddha. And it's said that it's not like a 0 or 100, like either you continue conditioned existence or you awaken as complete Buddha. In fact, realistically, it's more like somewhere in between those two. So to whatever degree that you are able to use these 5 awakenings, train now, so that then when the process of dying and death and bardo and rebirth happens, you can gain a much more useful, helpful rebirth. And become a tuku in the pure sense of tuku, and not the institution of tukus. Become a nirmana kaya for the benefit of others, taking birth like that.
Dr. Lee,
Yes.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
When you say when Buddhas see us, they only see Buddhas.
Yes.
I wonder how they interact with us, how they help us from a more pragmatic point of view.
Yeah. Then that is from the different perspective, and both are there. And then on the relative perspective, they see us with all our messiness. Then they are spontaneous because of the vows that they made when they were still like us. Those vows make the connection for them to also see the relative reality of our existence. Yeah, that's a good question, and we don't need to go too much into it, although in Buddhist circles, all the panditas, all the great scholars spend a lot of energy basically trying to answer that question. Like, if Buddhas are completely free from confusion, right? Doesn't that make it impossible for them to even see our confusion? So there's some kind of, epistemological questions, very big words. How the Buddhas, even see us if they are so pure. In other words, if they are so transcendent, how do they even see us? So various Buddhist traditions have come up with different answers. I used to love reading about all those things, but now, I don't know. It's called getting wiser, or getting lazier, or getting older, who knows? In one interesting development in China, although the words are a little shocking, but I think actually what they're saying is not so shocking. In one great Chinese Buddhist tradition called the Tiantai tradition, the founder of the tradition, Ziyi, lived in the 7th century. He eventually came up with, he says, not only is there innate goodness, which of course all Mahayana traditions accept, which is in other words, Buddhahood, right? He eventually came up with this very bold statement. He says, but there is also innate evil. That is his way of explaining how Buddhas can see our suffering. Evil in the Buddhist context is suffering. It's not like, Satan with horns and evil just means suffering. So he said there is innate evil in all of us, including in Buddhas. But the main difference between Buddhas and us, and the crucially difference is innate evil in Buddhas can no longer be activated at all. But that allows them a basis of recognizing that there are others who are suffering, who have evil. Whereas our innate evil is active, very ready to. The moment some condition comes, it goes. So very interesting idea. There's a couple of books by this one scholar, Brooke Ziporyn, Ziporyn. He teaches at Chicago Divinity School now, I think. Tiantai scholar. He's written a couple of really nice books on this. When I'm looking for distractions, sometimes I go read some of that. Karmic propensities from my previous life, when I was pretending to be a scholar. Finally failed in that pretension and just left, and now here I am with a different, new pretension. Other questions?
I have a question.
Yes. Rene.
So when we work with Vajrayana,
yeah,
then we mostly focus on the innate goodness, on recognizing the innate
yes,
good.
Yes.
And the question is, does that help us to more clearly see confusion?
Maybe not. It's up to you, you know. Yeah. And then when you say you work with Vajrayana, it's not like we practice Vajrayana to the exclusion of, you know. It's all three vows, everything, you know, all 84,000. Remember? I went on and on about that yesterday. So don't, you know, don't take one thing and put in one corner and say, oh, I'm going to just work on that. Everything is to be worked on within, with reference to everything else. So one side need to see very clearly what the confusions are. One side need to recognize innate goodness. One side need to do this. One side need to do that, you know. Because we are embodied beings, so our reality is linear. So at any given point, you are only working with one thing. And in that sense, yes, there's only one. But don't work on that one in a vacuum. Work on that one within this broader, right? This more holistic vision of all 84,000 dharmas are necessary. And once we really get all 84,000 dharmas are necessary, you will never again go, well, what about this? Well, what about that? Well, what about? Of course, of course, of course, of course. Even innate evil, which is such a shocking word in the Buddhist tradition, even that becomes, oh yeah, well, what about? Why not? So in the Tiantai tradition, they also use this, what they call Indra's net, which is a very, from I think Avatamsaka Sutra is one place, several places in the sutras, Buddha used the analogy of Indra's net. So Indra's net is this kind of magical device, magical thing, where it's a net, but this net is formed of jewels, and each jewel reflects, and these jewels are like almost like you could say like mirrors. So Indra's net is also a net of mirrors. So each mirror reflects every other mirror, and every other mirror reflects each mirror. So then an infinity of visions is contained in Indra's net. That's the 84,000 dharmas. Every dharma illuminates all the other dharmas. And every single dharma involves all the other dharmas. And so all 84,000 becomes a single dharma, dharma of infinity. So on page 27, at the bottom of 26 in our text, it says, from the vowels come a moon, and from the consonants come a sun. In Gilbert Rinpoche's instruction on this, from another teaching, another text, his pith instructions on the co-emergent Jagasamvara, he says, the moon is the moon that cools down our inflammation of the kleshas, of the afflictive emotions. So recognize the moon to be that which will cool down, pacify. The sun, he says, is the sun. So the moon is that which pacifies, and so that's the compassion. The sun is the sun of wisdom that heats all the seeds, providing warmth for the seeds to sprout all the Buddha qualities. He says, so you should know that when you see the moon, when you see the sun. And so even, like the natural phenomena that we call sun and moon, when you see that, you should also think of this. And then also from there, you remember, there are the afflictive emotions that needs to be pacified. There are the Buddha qualities that needs to sprout in relative reality. And so anyway, we come back page 27. From this complete transformation in a single instant, you are Jagasamvara. Right? Then from there, a description of Jagasamvara. His body is dark blue, pure and luminous, like the color of a stainless sky. So skies, especially in Tibet, can be very striking when you look up the sky. And the blue is really striking. So that symbolizes the purity of the Dharma Dhatu, the purity of the Dharmakaya. That is the true body of Jagasamvara, that is the true body of yours. He has one face and 3 eyes, and with fangs slightly bared. You can see fangs. And it says that 2 of the fangs face downwards and 2 upwards. One face is the one face, the single kind of reality of all phenomena. 3 eyes is seeing past, present, and future. Normally, when we think of, some powerful being seeing past, present, and future, we tend to think, they are like God, they know everything. Like the God of the theistic traditions. But here it's really talking about when we say they see the past, present, and future, they see the 3 times, it means they see karmic causality without confusion, without mistake. That's the whole point of seeing past, present, and future, seeing karmic causality. And because they see karmic causality without error, that is how practically they help us. Help us to also see karmic causality. If we really see karmic causality, then we will become more careful with choices that we make. If we can see, how a particular way of behaving gives rise to a particular type of harm, give rise to a particular undesirable results, then we become more careful with our actions of body, speech, and mind. Like yesterday, I talked about how even something as precious as Dharma, we can turn into drama. Dharma turning into drama. Instead of sincerely practicing Buddha Dharma, we get involved in Dharma circles. Then we get caught up in the drama that surrounds Dharma circles. It's not as if other circles don't have drama. Of course, whatever circles have their own dramas. So in that sense, it's not a unique Dharma circle problem. It's more a unique samsaric beings problem. So then wherever samsaric beings turn up, these dramas tend to start getting busy. So particularly in our Dharma context, we try not to let these usual dramas come. It's a fine line, right? Between not letting these dramas take over and also, right, not getting, as they say, gaslit. So please, on your own, try to maintain a balance, of, you don't need to think, everything that, happens in the Dharma circles is for my benefit, and, to the point of clearly, unhealthy things are going on, you still think, this is for my good, this is for my good. That's one extreme, Then the other extreme is not even seeing how our tendency for confuse things to poison even the elixir of liberation. So be careful, yeah. Don't be paranoid, but be careful. His left leg is bent, and right is stretched out. Yeah? And then the left that is bent is pressing on the left ear of Black Bhairava. So one deity is under his left foot. It's pressing down or is crushing the left ear of Bhairava. So Bhairava is black in color and laying down. And so for his left ear, right, to be crushed by Jagasamvara's left foot, then he's laying right on his right ear. So some detail there. And then his right leg is pressing down on the breast of Kalaratri. Bhairava is male, black in color. Kalaratri is female, red in color. So they symbolize the two extremes, nihilism and essentialism. Bhairava nihilism, Kalaratri, essentialism or eternalism. And therefore, Chakkasamvara is the middle way. The middle way free from the two extremes. The middle way that have overcome the faults of the two extremes. So don't think of Bhairava and Kalaratri. Even Bhairava and Kalaratri were manifested by Chakkasamvara to express the middle way. So don't think of Kalaratri and Bhairava as like some other random demons that Chakkasamvara has, crushed. They are part of the Buddha display. Yeah, Bhairava and Kalaratri. Then his two hands, holding Vajra and bell, and embracing Vajavarahi, the consort, like this. So that Vajra in the right hand and bell in the left hand, like that. His head is adorned with the cross Vajra, so he has hair piled up like an ascetic. Then there is a cross Vajra, kind of lodged in his piled up hair, and a top knot of matted hair. Yeah, so this is like a hair that is matted, tied with silk ribbons, and holding the cross Vajra, and on top of the cross Vajra is a wish-fulfilling jewel. Then on the left of his head, on that hair, is a crescent moon. This image of the crescent moon, it's clearly from the Indian god Shiva. As I said, like don't think of it as Hindu god. It's Indian, South Asian. The image of Shiva. So in the mythology of Shiva, it says that when the moon, is resting in Shiva's matted locks. And Shiva is sometimes said to be Mount Kailash itself. So if you see photos of Mount Kailash during the time when there is a crescent moon, it's usually on the left side, the crescent moon turns up. So from there, it's kind of also why the moon is on the left of Shiva, and therefore Chakkasamvara's at the top. What Shiva has, but is not, in Chakkasamvara, interestingly, is River Ganga. In Shiva representation, there's also not just the moon, but there's also a river basically flowing out from the hair as well. That's where, and also River Ganga comes down from Kailash, like in as a fact, from the Himalaya, the River Ganga flows down. So you can see that the imagery of Shiva is based on the imagery of the Himalaya, specifically of Mount Kailash. So Chakkasamvara is also based on that. His forehead is adorned with a garland of vajras and 5 dry skulls. So basically, maybe not garland, maybe I need to fix that a little bit. A tiara, basically. A kind of like, a princess tiara. So basically 5 dried skulls. In drawings, right? You see the 5 dry skulls all like across here. Yeah? But actually, they say it's not all like across here. It's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, like more in the center. Like a head with, sides. And then on top of the skull is where a vajra, half a vajra for each of the skull. So vajras and skulls, 5 dry skulls. And this is like the crown, the tiara that adorns Chakasamvara's head. So this is the 5 Buddha wisdoms. A hanging garland, now this one is garland. A hanging garland of 50 fresh heads is strung on human intestines. He is adorned with the 6 mudras. Here, mudras is talking about the adornments, 6 bone ornaments, 6 bone adornments that he wears. And so, like, there's a bone skirt, there is bone earrings, a bone necklace, so 6 of these. And then he wears a tiger skin skirt as well. He possesses the 9 dramatic sentiments of graceful, heroic, ugly, laughing, wrathful, terrifying, compassionate, majestic, and peaceful. These are the 9 modes, 9 moods that in the Indian classical dance tradition, and they say there are 9 human emotions that a performer, a dancer is not just a dancer, it's also like a drama performer. And so a dancer should have the ability to express these 9 emotions. So to say that Chakasamvara displays these 9 emotions is to say that he has mastered these 9 common human emotions. He is the Lord of these emotions. So you don't need to deny these emotions, but you need to become the Lord of these 9 emotions. We'll say more. I will next week, I will bring from Kyopa Rinpoche's a different text about these appearances, and these 9 emotions, these 9 moods. So today we end here. Let's do the dedication. So go back to the opening and dedication text. Page 27. Page 27 in the opening and dedication text, starting from Bodhicitta. Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise, where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. I pray for the excellent health of the Gurus, and may the Guru's supreme life be long. May the Guru's activity spread far and wide, and may I be blessed not to be separated from the Gurus, just as heroic Manjushri knows everything as it is, and Samantabhadra, who is thus as well. So too will I follow in their path and perfectly dedicate all the virtues accumulated. Through this dedication, praised as supreme by the conquerors of the 3 times, I dedicate all these roots of virtue to accomplishing the noble deeds. By the blessings of the Buddhas who have attained the 3 kayas, by the blessings of the truth of the unchanging Dharma as such, By the blessings of the indivisible Sangha order, may these dedication and aspiration prayers be accomplished. By the truth of the three jewels and the blessings of all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and by the great might of the complete perfection of the two accumulations, and by the strength of the completely pure and inconceivable Dharma Dhatu, may this be attained accordingly. By the virtues collected in the three times by me and the entirety of samsara and nirvana, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain the unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious Bodhi by the blessings of the truth of the Kagyu Gurus, the excellent three Idams, Dakinis, and Dharmapalas. May the spiritual and temporal places of the tradition of the second Nagarjuna flourish. Whatever harmful discord and faults may arise, may they be pacified, and may there be abundant prosperity and happiness. May the teachings of the great Drigong Paranashri, the all-knowing Dharma Lord, Master of interdependence, continue to increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara. By the power of the virtues collected in accordance with the teachings of the pure realizations of the unmistaken teacher, may the teachings of Ranashri of Drigong, the protector of the 10 bhumis, flourish perpetually. So this weekend, there is the Shravasti meditation program at Urban Dharma. So if you want, you can sign up and participate. There is Zoom participation option. Then I will share in the WhatsApp group for this program of a POA transmission and teaching that will occur on the weekend of November 8th and 9th. And so there is registration for that is open. But again, read the registration carefully, where it says, don't join, just out of curiosity. It's not helpful to you. But join, if you want to practice that, you have trust in that, But you say, well, I don't know if I have trust. Then no need yet, Leave it alone, Don't suffer from fear of missing out, But if you feel like, no, this is something that I should know, and this is the right time, then if you can, please join us. Some of you probably not convenient, time zone difference. So I see there is someone from Indonesia and some from Malaysia. Then closer to this side of the world, of course, Mexico, Guatemala, Peru, Colombia, and then, of course, the US. So this is the group that we have here, I think. Did I miss anyone as I look out there? Yeah, so anyway, thank you so much. We will continue this.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Yeah.
Good morning, good night.
Hi, good morning.